Yo, it's me. Welcome. The bass is dropped. It's Soccer Down here AM on a Friday, December 15th. I'm Jason Longshore. John Nelson's getting ready for Georgia High School Football Championship week. So he will be out for the first 3 days of the week. We won't have a show on Wednesday. You're stuck with me for Monday and Tuesday. I apologize in advance. We can get into kind of anything you guys want to. I think Bart Keeler and Abe Gordon are going to join in as we go this morning. We had champions, one in Mexico and in Argentina over the weekend, both in penalties. Both had their own bits of drama and such. We got all kinds of stuff to talk about from Europe. We've got some moves around MLS to talk about. All kinds of different things to get into today. So we'll kind of jump around a little bit. If you haven't checked out the morning espresso from this morning, talked a lot about what happened in Mexico and Argentina, and we'll get into that as we go, but also what's going on in Europe. And I want to talk just a little bit off the top about the idea of managers getting support from their clubs and just the situation that we have with managers right now. So we've got Xabi Alonso, who got a win against Alaves. It wasn't necessarily pretty. He got a big hug from Vinicius Jr. That was cool. Abby, I'm in a new place in my place. It's still my apartment, but it is kind of reconfigured a little bit. So I'm working on it. Some different art on the walls. I like that red soccer ball back there that I can point at now there. And that's from 94 World Cup stuff. That was a very cool find. So lots of different things on the walls. So there you go. But I want to talk about kind of managers and getting supported and all that. So Xabi Alonso gets the win. Vinicius Jr. gives him a big hug. That feels like a big deal with all the issues that have been going on around Madrid. They've got Copa del Rey this week. We'll talk about that as we go. Enzo Maresca, I thought was really one. It was premeditated. He didn't randomly say that he didn't feel support over the previous 48 hours before their win over Everton. That was planned. And it's crazy that he's not getting the support considering he won a European trophy. Yeah, it was a Conference League, but it's still a European trophy last season. And he won the freaking Club World Cup over PSG, which nobody saw coming. And they're very good. He should be getting supported. He should feel that support. Is he not? Because if he's not, then it's same old Chelsea, isn't it? If he is, but he's maybe angling for more, then I'm a very interested observer as to where things go with Chelsea. We had a bunch of changes in the lower table in Spain. Managers or clubs who have already fired managers somewhat recently fired their second managers, and that's never going to work well. Real Sociedad, we're talking about you, just all kinds of stuff. Now you've got Fiorentina in the mix in Italy where they might make another change. That stuff never works. And then that brings us around to Celtic and our friend Wilfried Nancy. They've lost 3 games since he took over. That's not good. The way this whole thing has been handled, and I've gotten into it a little bit on Morning Espresso, and I know we've talked about it on soccer over there. And when I start talking about Celtic, Jarrett Smith might randomly appear, so I'm ready for that. It's shameful how this whole thing has gone, and he has been set up to fail. First off, and if the board is gonna believe in him to hire him and give him a I'm not sure how many years he's under contract for, but a longish term contract. Wouldn't you set him up to have the best success possible? Martin O'Neill came out and he said that he was not asked to stay on, which would have made the most sense to stay on through the cup final. He was not asked. He said he only had a 10 to 15-minute conversation with Wilfried Nancy. And if Martin O'Neill is the steward of the club that I thought he was, I would have expected him to go out of his way to set up Nancy for success. And I don't know why that didn't happen. If that's on him, if that's on the club, if that's on Wilfried, I don't know. But why do you invest in somebody who has a very clear way that he wants to play and you hire him because of that? And then when you don't get immediate results, you're not doing the things to support him publicly, because the pundits are running wild in Scotland. And look, you got a bunch of people who are saying some very ill-informed, dumb things. There's just no other way to put it. I'm sorry. I'd like to use a different word. There's not one. When people are saying that he is tactically naive, no, you're wrong. You haven't paid attention to his career. You don't want to give Major League Soccer any credit. It's foolishness to say something like that. You are telling on yourself when you say things like that. When he was hired, I want to know what he was told. I want to know, was he told to go in and build, and we'll take the short-term hits if we have to take them? Was he hired and told, go win games now, we don't care about style? Which would seem to be foolish if you're hiring somebody who is very well known for a game model. So I don't know. Yeah, no, I know, Abby. I mentioned Celtic. Usually that's like the bat signal when it comes to Jarrett. I don't know. I don't know why this has been handled the way that it has. I hate it for Wilfried, who is just one of the classiest people in the game. I believe in the soccer that we've seen from him in Montreal and in Columbus, and I believe that he can elevate Celtic's style of play, which is style, practically non-existent. He's going to have to get some better players to do it. And if there's anything that should be the story coming out of this, it should be the difference. And this is where you have to take a step back from yelling and wanting to take shots and wanting to get some hot clicks. The story that comes out of this, in my opinion, is the fact that now you have a manager who is asking his team to think and to play. Like, actually play and keep the ball and actually think about what they're doing. And they're not showing that they're capable of that for 90 minutes. And it tells you a lot about the quality of players. And it tells you a lot about the previous recruitment. And it tells you a lot about the previous managers. Brendan Rodgers, who looks like now is headed to Saudi Arabia, feels like he was checked out on this a while back. And he made this situation worse than it should have been as well. He has to take some blame in this. And going to Al Qadsiya, probably not the best sign of what his ambitions are to actually, I don't know, be at high levels in the game anymore. He'll get paid well. So good, full credit to him on that. Agent's going to get a nice check. But you look at how Wilfried is trying to have this team play, and they can't do it, and they can't understand it. And yeah, it's been a short period of time, and hopefully that will get better. But it just tells you a lot about the board, their understanding of what it takes for a new manager to come in and be successful, and their previous recruitment. It seems it's not very good. And it's going to take some work from Wilfried Nancy. And I hope he gets the time to do that work, and I hope he can get a result here to shut some people up, because it's very obnoxious seeing some of the comments, and it's very frustrating as somebody who works in the United States and believes in the league that Wilfried Nancy comes from, and the comments that are so dismissive of it are just wrong. I mean, they're just wrong. Ricky, we'll probably get into the super draft a little bit as we go this week. We are picking really high, and I'm curious to see what happens out of that. The super draft is very difficult to predict, and I want to maybe preface any super draft conversations with that. It's very difficult to predict what these guys are going to end up doing. We'll see if Abe Gordon has any insight on this. If I can get him into the show, let's try it that way. What's up, Abe?
How we doing, Jason? Good to see you.
You're good. It's been a minute. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, man. It's cold outside. It's quite cold, so
Yes.
probably indoor training for everyone in the soccer world, the running community. We stick it outside though. It's been nice to run in the cold.
Do you like running in the cold more than the heat?
Especially for distance, like I just get massively impacted by the heat. Like I ran yesterday, and when we finished, the guy I was running with was like soaked in sweat, and I was like a little bit of sweat, but not much. Like I just don't lose I just don't lose what I lose in the summer. And it's just so dangerous if you're not. John has a long running joke about my hydration. It's honestly it's not dangerous, but muscle issues and all that stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
And in the cold, it's like, yeah, we just put our water bottles yesterday at the start of each loop. It's 5 mile loop. And so, I'm not going to go 5 miles in the middle of the summer without drinking water. I wouldn't make it. So I like running in the cold. I'm a short sleeve, shorts, cold weather runner. Everyone else does like longs or tights or whatever. I'd rather be cold for the first mile than like overheated for miles 2 through
That's true.
10 or whatever the run is. So I just deal with the cold for a little bit. But the wind was kicking yesterday. That's for sure.
Yeah, the wind was brutal. You're right. There is a balancing act. I mean, I think of when I was playing and it would get cold. You have to you have to try to stay a little warm, but then if you get overheated, it can be really uncomfortable and can't really change at that point.
No, the problem with playing in the cold for soccer is never if you're a field player. It's if you're a goalie. You're just
Yeah.
standing there and you can try and tough it out and wearing shorts. Normally, if I play goalie, I'll wear longs.
Yeah.
If I'm a field player on that given day, I'll wear shorts. But like obviously in a full field regular game, I think that's probably fine. Like when you're in a rec league and you're getting subbed out after 8 minutes and then you just go stand on the sideline
Yeah.
until halftime, like you better have your jacket over there. But once you get going, I think you're normally fine.
That's always the thing that worries me in cold weather games when you come back from halftime as well. I mean, yeah, you're going into a heated locker room, hopefully, depending on where you're playing. But it's always hard to get warm, get loose, then cool down, then get going again.
Yeah, and I think when you talk about like the proper warm up, and I mean, I know you guys joke about it when you and it's obviously you can do that here in Atlanta at Mercedes-Benz Stadium where it is climate controlled. But
Mhm.
the teams that come out, with 30 seconds before the whistle, and you see a guy maybe do one little kind of mid-speed jog, and then you're like, well, I hope my muscles are contracting properly at this point. So yeah, especially in some of those games, and we'll see a little bit of that maybe become a bigger concern with the modified schedule, right? And
Yep.
again, I know you just kind of move what part of the season some of the bad temperature games might be in.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll be something to watch certainly, and for Atlanta United who plays in a weather controlled arena, who practices in, even if you're outdoor practicing, I get it. Today it's relatively cold, but it's very tough to recreate what happens if you go to Chicago
Yeah.
or if you go to New York and face some of the teams around the country that are not climate controlled and the weather is just going to be worse than it is here. So that's probably a slightly new aspect of kind of the nutrition and the
Yeah.
science of Atlanta United that maybe I hadn't considered before with the schedule change. Again, you're just kind of moving what part of the season some of the tougher weather games might be. So that'll be interesting to follow. But yeah, the weather can wreak some havoc, especially. I mean, in soccer, we know the wind too can be
Yeah.
dangerous on balls that are lofted or whatever. So if there were a game yesterday in Atlanta, the wind would have probably gotten someone a goal they didn't deserve.
Yeah. Michael's reading my mind in terms of where I wanted to go next. So I want to get into some World Cup stuff with you because I haven't caught up with you about World Cup at all yet. And they came out with the news, or I don't know if it's actually FIFA has said this yet or if it's still in the reporting stage. It all kind of runs together a little bit after a while. But the hydration breaks, they are going to do hydration breaks in the middle of each half, which I've always thought it was stupid to do it at the 30-minute mark of each half. Just do it in the middle. So they're going to do it in the middle. FIFA Pro, the Worldwide Players Association, had pushed for actually having two shorter hydration breaks as opposed to one 3-minute hydration break. And we'll get these in Atlanta as well. This will be tournament wide. Kind of where do you fall on that? I mean, and you come from a different perspective from, understanding the hydration when it comes to running. Is one longer break in the middle of a longer period of exertion, is that good? Should it be too shorter? Kind of how do you feel on that?
Well, I mean, I don't know what FIFA believes the goal of a hydration break is. Is it to
Good
bring
question.
your internal core body temperature down, or is it to just be what it says it is, which is just to allow players who are maybe on the far side of the field, can't come over in a free kick situation to grab a quick bottle, is it to allow them to hydrate through? And so I think the question is really, what is the goal of hydration break? It shouldn't take long to chug down however much water or electrolytes or a salt tablet. Or, and again, it's still only 45 minutes plus whatever stoppage time. So I mean, there's a running thing. You're probably not dealing with salt tablets at that point, but electrolytes or just general water. My thing is just like, it should be short. It should be quick. It also needs to be added on to the end time, to stoppage 100%. Time, and make sure we do that. I think I saw, maybe, did they say 3 minutes
They're saying 3. So it's going to be 3, which, and I agree, this does help you a little bit in terms of sponsorships and commercials, because if you're not, because right now when you do a hydration break, we don't know how long it's going to be. Mm-hmm. When I do college games and there's hydration breaks, a lot of times college games, because we're dealing with college producers who are used to commercial breaks, so they're always wanting to throw one in. So they'll try to squeeze one in on a hydration break, and it might be a minute, it might be 3 minutes, we don't know. With this now, we're going to know it's 3 minutes. It's World Cup, which is the most expensive property in terms of commercials you can find, because you don't get many. And now you're going to be able to squeeze in a good 90 seconds to 2 minutes of commercials on top of all the other money you're going to make. FIFA's happy. Broadcasters are happy.
Yeah, and quite honestly, like, I also just think you have to, I get it. It's an indoor environment. It is controlled. I do think you have to do whatever you're doing across the board. I don't think you can have it's only a hydration break if it's over 83 degrees, or, I mean, God forbid we start to figure out what the dew point numbers actually mean. But I think you just have to.
What is it? The wet bulb temperature, I think, is the one that they describe in this.
Well,
and I'm like, what?
I always, especially again, going back to like summer running, I was like, well, it's only so-and-so degrees. But obviously here in Atlanta, with the humidity, and then you look at the dew point, and I don't know, they say like, well, if it's a dew point of 72, it's dangerous to run in. I'm like, well, it says 74, but I got 8 miles on schedule, so just got to deal with it. But I do think you have to have it everywhere just to keep things even and level, and kind of get into the pattern of it. I also think that probably does help the officials and the scorekeepers and deal with, as you meant, like, just it should be an obvious stoppage time addition.
Yeah.
It shouldn't. I mean, you should never have less than 3 minutes of stoppage time. Like that's the moral of the story. Like,
that's your minimum now.
It'd be wild to have a 3-minute stoppage for water, a hydration break, and then the fourth official's like 1 minute. I'm like, well, so at least it gives them something uniform to work with. But, we'll see when we get there how hot it really is, how necessary it is. It'll be interesting to see, because it also, again, it's a hydration break. It should be quick, but it does allow the managers of these teams to adjust earlier than halftime, which and I know there's a little bit of relaying messages and stuff like that, but I mean direct adjustments to guys that, again, maybe you can't reach during the run of play. So it'll be interesting to see if it parlays itself into that at all. I wish it was a little shorter, probably 2 minutes. And again, this goes back to the commercial aspect of it.
Right.
It shouldn't take you more than 30 seconds to get to the water and back to your position from the water. I don't know how much you need to chug, but if you're taking down a whole minute's worth of liquid, that's quite an achievement. So
I think it's the signal from FIFA. One, you do want a commercial break here, and if you do 3 minutes, you can squeeze in. Like, I kind of think it'll be 90 seconds of commercials. I would like to see picture in picture with it.
That's what I was going to ask. If you're going split screen, double box.
I would. Yeah. If I'm producing, that would be where I'd want to go, just so you're showing. Because what's going to happen too, I think the other element that has been an evolution with this is, I remember when they first started adding hydration breaks, and it was very strict. Like, coaches could not talk to players. And then they realized, like, you're not going to be able to actually police that, and you're not going to start throwing yellow cards all over the place. So they've let that go. So now it's almost like a TV timeout. And we see what that does in basketball, for example, in terms of the flow, in terms of being able to make some minor tweaks. And you can't make a bunch of subs, but you can make some changes to what you're doing. I'll be very intrigued to see which managers take advantage of these situations.
Yeah, and the other thing I was thinking of when you kind of compared it to basketball is in what are the situations in which these officials call for the hydration break? You would think only, in
It'll
my
be at a
opinion.
stoppage, yeah.
Well, I agree it'll be at a stoppage. We're not going to, run through play.
Yeah.
But is that stoppage a free kick in a dangerous situation, or is it a corner kick, or is it because I would only do it. You may have to play with the window of time. I would
Yeah,
only do it after a goal kick or leading into a goal kick.
I could do a goal kick would be my preferred for sure.
Right.
I mean, when I'm doing college games, for example, going back to that, like I'm always like, all right, if we have some element that we have to include in something, let's do it on a goal kick because that's where I've
Yeah.
got time to talk
Yeah.
about it. So a goal kick would be ideal. I think you could do it on a throw in that's not in the attacking third, and that'd be fine. A throw in the defensive third or in the middle third, especially. You could do. It's going to take a little bit of navigation from referees because there are free kicks where you could do it. Like if it's a foul and you're taking a free kick out of your defensive third, okay, you could do that. You could do the hydration break there.
Yeah.
If it is
anything that could be
scoring
sent into the
opportunity.
box, anything
Yeah,
that
I
could be
would-
sent because now
I
you're
would lean
drawing up
against it.
plays, and this is where it
Right.
goes back to basketball. The
Right.
comparison you made. Now you're drawing up plays and you're running, quote a set piece, and you have those anyways. I understand, but a chance to really diagnose what you want to do with it, it would be a tough advantage, I think,
Yeah.
to be on the wrong end of that. So yeah, I'm kind of with you. Like if you're, I would you call it if the goalkeeper has it in his hands but is not rushing to restart play?
No, I would
So
let that go.
Okay.
I would let it play out, and if they hold the ball in their hands for longer than 8 seconds, and you're going to the corner
Well,
kick anyway, so that opens up the
That's our
door.
call.
But yeah,
You think that's going to get called pretty tightly? I know there's been some instances here, but
we've seen a handful. Like I've probably seen it called, I want to say 4 or 5 times in the various things that I've done.
you watch a lot of soccer, though.
Yeah, I do.
That's not that much, and I know they're holding on to it for a lot longer than that.
They're playing quicker. I think
Yeah.
the threat of it is definitely playing quicker. So that helps.
What's the specific rule? Is it just 8 seconds in general? Is it 8 seconds from when
8 seconds when you have
attacking players
control.
clear?
I think it's
Okay.
control, so you get wiggle room in it.
Mhm.
Like if, you see goalkeepers now, they'll want to waste time and they'll let the ball sit, and then when they pick it up, it starts when they, I think, have it in control and can play. Is
So that
generally where it
nonsense
goes.
where they gather the ball and then just fall down on it. That
It's
doesn't
kind of when
start
they
the
get
8
to their
seconds
feet.
yet. Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah, it's kind of when
Which
they
is
get
nonsense.
to their feet.
If the officials should be able to be like, you didn't have to go to the ground on there. Your 8 seconds start now, because I don't like that time wasting myself.
Yeah, I don't either, but it's kind of hard to eliminate, and we're gonna get into some of this with Bart here in a little bit as well on the referee perspective of it. I saw one college game because I got all messed up in a college game this season at Mercer because we actually had an MLS referee on the game, which was crazy to begin with. Jose Carlos Rivero in Macon, Georgia, doing a Mercer men's game was wild. But he called a goalkeeper holding the ball for too long. And he didn't go to the corner. He gave the indirect free kick, which was the old school way of doing it, which I had only seen called twice in my life. One of them was the Olympic semifinal for the U.S. women against Canada in 2012, which sparked all kinds of controversy. But college hasn't changed the rule yet. So he actually called the 6-second rule on a goalkeeper and gave an indirect free kick inside the 18. And everybody's like, what is happening? And I'm on the call like, what's happening? And had to eventually get to where we figured that one out. I do think, as Bart says in the comments, that the countdown, just the fact that it exists and you're seeing referees use it with signals, that's helping speed up play. So I do think they got this one right in terms of the idea of where it's going. Let's go back to World Cup because we haven't talked about kind of your feelings on it. I'll give you a hypothesis, and I want to see how you feel on it, kind of keeping with our current theme. I think, and I put some of this back to what we saw in 2014 as well when the tournament was in Brazil. I think you're going to see positive surprises from teams in this hemisphere, and you're going to see negative surprises in teams from Europe because of the heat and the conditions.
Interesting. Is that I guess the question I would now ask is that going to be venue dependent? Is
It
that something you
could.
don't see in Atlanta or Dallas, but maybe you do see in some of the outdoor environments?
It could, and that's a good point. I'd have to go back through each of the groups and see if some of the European teams maybe get a little bit lucky. But I think back to 2014 where you didn't have indoor venues, and Chile was really good in that tournament,
Mhm.
and they're typically not. Um, Colombia made a great run in that tournament, and they're typically not there. I could see Colombia actually making a run in this one. I could see them winning their group. I've got that picked over Portugal. I think Ecuador is a team to watch in this tournament. I think Germany should be a little worried about what Ecuador can bring. I think it's going to be a situation, Mexico playing in Mexico. If Mexico wins their group, which I think they're capable of, I don't think it's a slam dunk, but I think they're capable of because they haven't been good lately.
Yeah.
But you're going to get the boost to playing at home. You're going to get the boost to playing at altitude in some cases. And in Mexico City, some of the poor air quality that they'll be used to a little bit where other teams won't. Mexico, if they win their group, and then they get through round of 32, which if they win their group, they should. That should be a manageable match for them. You're looking at a round of 16 where they would host England at the Estadio Azteca, which would be
Mm.
absolute insanity. And a
Yeah.
game that they would feel like, hey, we might be able to pull the surprise here.
Yeah, and I think probably the way I would look at it is your style, that your country's style of play, I think also is going to be a factor there.
Yeah,
If
good
you're a
point.
little bit slower and building and patient, I don't know if it's necessarily going to catch up with you the same as if you're up and down the field and really asking your midfielders, really asking your wing backs to just do a crazy amount of work, get up the field, helping the attack, get back. So I think it also depends on what sort of style your team plays and
Yeah.
what you're asking those players to do. Because to your point, does it necessitate that some of those teams that are very electric, very energetic, do they have to slow down their style of play? Is that something you kind of weigh? You can't change your team too much. It's the World Cup, but you also, I mean, you can't get burned because 75 minutes in, you've already had your second half hydration break and you just got nothing left. And
Yeah.
you've already used subs and all that stuff. So,
I think you'll see more goals in the last 15 minutes in this tournament than maybe
right.
any tournament we've seen.
Yeah. And that'll be something that, again, you have to weigh. Is
Yeah.
this something where you tell your team, maybe it's in the first 20 minutes of the second half coming out to take it a little slower? Maybe it's the opening 30 minutes to take it a little
Mhm.
slower. Then you put the foot on. I don't know exactly what the right mixture of, let's have some reserves here versus let's be our normal all out self. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I think just in general, that historically at World Cup, you just teams are better in their own hemisphere. They're better in their own
Generally, yeah.
continent. So you have that kind of anyways. But you're right. I think you do talk about some of the climate and some of the expectations and who's prepared for it. I think that'll be interesting. Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
You may this is just off top of your head. Is there a chance that Germany gets to Atlanta in any of the post group stage games?
I'd have to go through the scenarios to see if it's even possible. If they win their group, I don't think it is. Maybe the semifinal. I can't remember which side of the bracket they're on off the
Yeah,
top of my
I'm
head.
only asking because we got the news last week, although it's not confirmed that the Falcons are going to have another international game. I know
Mhm.
two more games next year in the NFL are going to be played in Germany. Obviously, they had the Germany game this year. I do think it'd be interesting if Germany came here, the Falcons go
Yeah.
to Germany. Some of the fans, German fans, might have an opportunity to see where the Falcons play their home games at. It'd be a nice little
Yeah.
allegiance to strengthen the tie between the Atlanta Falcons / Atlanta United and Germany and the German fans, both soccer and football. But I didn't know if that was possible either.
Yeah, I'd have to go through to see. I know if the group winners that would be here, if they win out, you'd have a semifinal of Argentina England,
Yeah.
which would be insanity. You'd have a round of 16 where it'd be Argentina, I think, against the second place team from one of two groups. And then round of 32 is England if they win their group against, I believe, a third place team from who knows where.
Yeah.
So it would take some weirdness for Germany to end up here, but those are the kind of stories that are cool about this tournament. I mean, South Africa coming here, and there's a lot of historical ties between Atlanta and South Africa, so that's a cool one. Getting Spain, who I think is the favorite for 2 games, is an awesome way to start it. Cabo Verde, with their great story, come in here, and there's connections to Atlanta. Aiden Torres, his family has Cabo Verde heritage, all kinds of different things. Bart says if Germany are the runners up, they could end up making their way through Georgia,
Yeah, I just think it'd be a
which
cool
is
tie-in
possible.
with Falcon stuff.
Yeah, no, I could see Ecuador winning that group. That's another one where, like, you get to that game, and I think that's the 3rd game of the group. Germany likes to play high tempo, and I don't think they're going to be able to do that against Ecuador in game 3, and Ecuador could take the group, and then things get weird. Yeah, I'm not even getting into 3rd place, Bart, because that's way too complicated to see who goes where. Let me ask you about the U.S. and just the group that they're in, and now you've had some time to kind of think about it and marinate on it. What do you think about the U.S. draw?
I think you're setting yourself up for success.
I do too.
I think at
Yep.
the end of the day, it would be even second place and advancing. While ultimately, what determines if this is a good run for the U.S. comes after group stage, I still think it'd be a massive disappointment if you're not first place. It's just so winnable. It
Yeah.
really is. There's no reason, unless it's some sort of weird unexpected draw, then it comes into goal differential on your third match, stuff like that. But um, it's about as good a draw as you can get, depending on is it Turkey or who comes out of that third place
Yeah. I would expect
play in.
Turkey.
But
I'm
right, and
expecting it to be Turkey.
yeah, and anything outside of them, I think, is even more
Yeah.
beneficial. And
100%.
that, the one thing I've never liked, and I understand why, is if you have a team, and if this is not a U.S. thing, I think you're going to see it up and down these groups. The teams from Pot A or whatever who are supposed to win the group against the teams from Pot D, and it's just because of the tie-breaking scenarios, because of how many teams are advancing. I don't love the idea of having to pour it on against some of the lesser teams, but I think you're going to see that throughout this tournament. And I think we've become accustomed to that. I know the U.S. women's team took out, what was it, Thailand 13-0.
Mhm.
I don't know if it'll get to 13-0 in some of these games, but I think you're going to see some of those sorts of performances. I think it scuffs the golden boot situation
Can.
at times. And so it'll be interesting to see if the U.S. is able to pour it on, if they have to pour it on against whoever comes out of that playoff.
Yeah, I think you get to another point, which is kind of interesting here, because the U.S. group, to me, I'm with you. It's a group that they should feel like they can win, but they don't really have an easy game in it either. It's a group that has a lot of parity, but the U.S. is the favorite, and I would agree with
Feels
the
like a lot of
viewpoint maker.
2-0 or 2-1 wins. It's
Feels like a lot of
relatively
tight games,
competitive. Yeah.
which might make the 3rd place team coming out of that group difficult. Because if it comes down to a goal difference situation, I don't think there's going to be big games in
Right.
this group, whereas other groups, you'll have that. So as I've kind of gone through it and played
Honestly,
with.
if the U.S. needs a tiebreaker to get into a third place position, I don't even want to advance. All right. Like, just kick me out at that point.
I disagree with that, because you go back to what happened in 2002, where they needed help to get in, they got in, and they got Mexico in the knockout round. And it's the only knockout game we've ever won. For me, success for the U.S. is winning a knockout game.
Right.
Like, I think if you get to the round of 16, it is a successful tournament. If you get past 2 knockout games, it is the best tournament that we've ever seen for the U.S., literally, because they've only won 1 knockout game in their history.
Maybe I'm harsh, and part of that's because of the format. I think winning 1 knockout game is like the baseline expectation.
Yeah.
Winning a second would be successful.
I'd put it I'd skew it a little bit differently. But I think we're basically on the same page, because the other thing too is you never know exactly how the bracket will fall. I mean, let's say you win your group and everybody's happy, but then you get a 3rd place team that wasn't supposed to be a 3rd place team,
Right.
like a Germany or somebody that falls into that. Then we have a different feel about it. If you come in second in your group, but then things fall for you, fortunately, and you get teams that you've beaten and you go in confidently and you win a couple games, I think we feel differently about it. But Yeah, I think the baseline for it to be a successful tournament is to win a knockout game and get to the round of 16. Because I think this is a team, and I believe they're 16 in the FIFA rankings. I keep calling them a top 20 team, which is about where they are, which would put you to round of 16 being your minimum. That's where you should be. And I think this group is one where you can get there because if you win the group, you should get a knockout game that you can win.
How do you feel about how the schedule fell in terms of Paraguay first and then Australia versus it being, either the playoff winner or Australia first?
I would have liked to have had the playoff winner first if I got to pick it because I think they're going to be the toughest team in the group. And that's what throws these groups. And I think we have a good sense on what they are right now, but the playoff winners from Europe end up throwing a team that would have been a pot 2 or a pot 3 team into your group.
Right.
The interconfederational playoff winners would all be pot 4 teams. There was actually talk that UEFA was going to lock the playoff winner into the pot where their highest seeded team would be. They ultimately didn't do that. So, like Canada's group, if they get Italy, that group dramatically skews, even though Italy hasn't been great in the World Cup as of late. They're still Italy, and they still have the talent that they have. Turkey, a talented team. Denmark could go into Mexico's group, talented team, and it makes that group much harder than the others. I like to have my hardest game first because then if it doesn't go well, I get 2 games to regroup.
Yeah, you know what you got to do.
Australia is the weirdest one in this group for me because I think they're the weakest team. But I think they're a team that has absolutely no problem making the game ugly and physical. And as we saw in the friendly, potentially dangerous when it comes to injuries at times. And that makes the weakest team like they're not a weak team who's happy to be here. Where, okay, if you get a couple goals on them, you feel like you can coast. They're going to fight you, and maybe literally. And that creates possible for injury and possible for cards that can hurt you later in the tournament.
Would you have delayed the draw until after the playoffs so you just had the full field?
No, I don't think you really could have by that point, just the way the calendar works. And maybe going forward you can. But remember, we're on instead of a 4-year cycle, it's actually a 3.5-year cycle because of 22 being where it was in the calendar.
Right.
So you lose 6 months that if you could have got the playoffs done and then had the draw like immediately after. I don't think you could have afforded to do the draw just for everybody's travel purposes and all that. You couldn't have done it April 1, which is when you would have had to do it. It would have been too late. So I think
I just kind of a bummer not really knowing,
Yeah.
not just for the U.S. who got one of the playing teams, but just for a number of the groups who still don't know.
Yeah, for sure. What do you have coming up this afternoon on your shows? Tease your shows for everybody.
Yeah, we're on 11 to 2, 11 a.m., 2 p.m. on 92.9 The Game, the midday show with Andy and Randy. I don't know. It's a
kind
weird
of
Monday.
Yeah, because the Falcons had the Thursday game.
So normally this would be a heavy Falcon reaction. And I was joking with Mike Connie. Is like, I don't know where the guys are going to start today. Like I put in the rundown, hey, Jalen Johnson has 4 straight triple doubles. But like, is that a story? Are we just going to talk about old man Rivers out there not being able to get it done for the Colts? Serious injuries, the Chiefs dynasty.
Yeah.
Green Bay Packers playoff chances, or not playoff chances, but hopes when they get to the playoffs. With Micah Parsons takes a hit. So I don't really know what we're going to talk about. I know as the week goes on, certainly the college football playoffs is going to take a bigger role here, especially because the Falcons have already been eliminated from playoff contention. But that gets going Friday and then a triple header Saturday in college, and we'll find out who Georgia's playing in their next round. Probably Ole Miss, but you never know. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting build over the course of this week.
All right, I'll ask you one more before I let you go that kind of ties into where we were with World Cup. How did you feel about the group of 5 teams in the college football playoff? Are you happy they're there? Or are you not happy they're there?
Yeah, so I'm happy at least one of them are there. And they're going to modify the format and probably make sure that the second team never gets in. This is an ACC problem. This isn't the group of 5 problem. Yep. The ACC butchered it. They screwed it up. Their tie-breaking scenarios and the fact that Virginia couldn't get it done, whatever. Here's my thing. Unless you're just going to split college football entirely, every team needs to at least believe that they can start their season with a chance to play for a championship.
Yeah, I agree.
If there's just no group of fives involved and there's really no real path to them getting in, because they're never going to get in as an at-large. Like the committee just would never have that happen.
Right.
So unless you're going to split and they play for their own little thing and the big boys do their thing, I think every team in the country needs to at least have the idea that they can play their way in and be given a chance. If you start your season knowing you can never play for a championship, then what is it all for?
Mm-hmm.
So I do like the group of five bid. Even if you go to 16 with more auto bids and whatever, I still think the group of five needs to be included.
Agree.
Every school needs to start the year with the belief that if they take care of their business, they can play for a championship. And so I think that's important.
Yeah, I love it. That's pretty much where my head's at too. And they'll go to 16 and
Oh yeah.
God, I don't know if they'll go past that. They probably will at some point. I don't know what it turns into, but you have to have a group of five in the round of 16 for me. I think that just makes sense. All right, well, we're going to be catching up again here soon because we got lots of Atlanta United coming. We're about less than a month away from preseason starting. The rumors are kicking in South America. Not a whole lot of major rumors. A couple have started to bubble up a little bit, but we'll see how all this comes together, and then we'll be back at it on the radio here pretty soon.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Just need to make sure we delay the media match until after my marathon because I don't want to take any knocks if we're doing the media match early this year.
Well, maybe you'll have to stay in goal for that and
I might.
And not take any knocks unless Jarrett Smith shows up and runs into you or something.
Yeah, he's sliding 2-footed. There's no doubt about that.
He's prone to that. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for jumping in.
You got it, Jason. Have a good rest of the show.
You too. That's Abe Gordon. He'll have a big show coming up on 92.9 The Game with Andy and Randy coming up in about an hour 15. I'm totally with him on the group of five thing, and that's actually pretty funny because it kind of goes back to, we talk on this show a lot over the years about all the crazy formats we've seen, and I know in MLS we get into playoff formats, and we just went through a playoff format in Argentina, and we always have the playoffs in Mexico that I think we're used to. I love competitions where everybody goes into the season feeling like they can win. I don't enjoy competitions in leagues that don't have that drama. I find myself, without sitting here as, okay, I'm going to turn on a game, I find myself like gravitating to leagues that are more open. Now, look, in leagues that don't have salary caps, there's going to be a resource situation, like La Liga, for example. And their spending caps are absurd. And it's why Madrid and Barcelona will always be the two, with Atleti being the third chasing. Although Atleti, with the money that they've brought in now from a sale, and they're going to go battery style entertainment district around the Metropolitano, they could change their revenue situation, and then they could get up into this conversation. La Liga caps how much you can spend based on how much you bring in. So what it does is cements teams in certain spots. But even there's at least a few teams that are competing, and then you get a good second tier of teams that push these top teams. I enjoy it. I've talked about how I don't generally get into the Bundesliga, although Bayern did get drawn with Mainz over the weekend and needed a late goal from Harry Kane to rescue a point against a terrible Mainz team. So you get those slip-ups, but Bayern's going to win almost 95% of the time. One title that they did not win in a long time. I don't enjoy the competition as much because of that. I think the Premier League has gotten more interesting to me now, as it feels a little more wide open than maybe it was a few years ago. It felt like you had the big four, then you had the big six, and now that's kind of splintered into big top half, kind of, sort of. I don't know. I've enjoyed it, but I enjoy the playoffs that I just had a chance to watch a lot of in Mexico and Argentina. I enjoy those spots. I enjoy seeing these games that have a different feel to them. A playoff game is even more different than a cup game to me. Cup can be fun. Cup tournaments are fun when you get down to the wire, they can be very entertaining in the one-offs. A playoff where your season's on the line is something extra. And I'm really excited about seeing it. I want to see how MLS evolves their playoff format. We could get into that all night. I want to come back to Celtic because Alex Bassine had a question that I want to get into. A couple little bits of news that are bubbling up since Morning Espresso and since we started. Fabrizio Romano is reporting that Thiago Silva is going to leave Fluminense and try a new chapter ahead of the 2026 World Cup. Wants to go to Europe, according to Globo. He had a really good run at Fluminense, was very good in the Club World Cup as well for Fluminense. He still got it at his age. I think he's going to be important in the World Cup. I want to see where he ends up. Does he end up at a Real Madrid? Because they need defensive help. Maybe they sign Sergio Ramos and Thiago Silva and just go completely old man center back. Be better than having no man center back, which is where they've been. Romano also reports that as he had quite a while back, Sergio Reguilon is going to Miami. The Spanish left back, that was reported back in October. He always wanted to go to Miami, was out of contract, and now he will be headed to Miami. According to Fabrizio Romano, deal is done. Brian Gutierrez is gone from Chicago now. He is at Chivas. I hate to see him leave the league. He's always been one of my favorites. Looks like he's going to join the Mexican national team program as well. I would have liked to have seen him stay in the league. I would have liked to have seen Chicago build around him a little bit more. I think they gave him more of a role this season. I always felt like he was just underutilized. Just a really talented player who there's too many people ahead of him with the U.S. national team. So if he jumps to Mexico, I understand that. But he's a player that I would keep an eye on for potentially coming back at some point. And yeah, Jordi Alba replacement is secured for Miami. Alex had brought up the topic about Wilfried Nancy and where things are. Had followed up on my bringing that up. He said, "Aren't fans right to be frustrated, assuming the board knew they didn't have the guys to play how Nancy wants to play? Aren't they basically punting the season by making the change now?" Here's where it's a little complicated. And let me finish his follow up as well. Being frustrated doesn't require questioning someone's coaching skills or the league they've come from. Absolutely. They didn't make the change. And this is where Brendan Rodgers, and I think his role in this has to be talked about. I mean, Brendan Rodgers just basically quit and said, "I'm done," and said he was frustrated with the board, which I think he had a right to be. I don't think the board supported him with spending the way that he needed. I think the roster, the talent on the roster is showing that. But the way he left when he did, they had to bring in somebody. They decided not to keep Martin O'Neill in that role for the season. It sounds like he might have wanted to do that. I don't know. I don't know if that was ever a possibility. It probably wouldn't have been the best thing for them. But the way they did this, I do think fans have a right to be upset, but it's misguided. I think, and I'm not even really getting into the fans as much as I'm getting into some of the Scottish pundits who are, I mean, after game one, there was talk about, oh, Nancy's using a tactics board. Yeah, so he had like a handful of training sessions with the team and he's trying to create the way that he wants to play. So he's literally showing them again because they're not understanding, because they're not at the level they need to be, not just physically, not just technically, but tactical understanding. They're not getting it. So he's got to show them. That says more about the players than it says about the coach. And the fact that pundits and fans joining in, but pundits attacking a manager because he's using a tactics board is stupid. So if you use a notebook and you point it out, or you use your hand, you're like, do go here and here, here. If you do that, that's okay. But if you literally use a tool that makes it easier to show what you want, that's not okay. Really? Okay. Sure. And even getting into him wearing green trainers, green shoes. Stop it. Just silliness. And the problem is when that stuff starts, that stuff gets into fans' minds. and then at times can then spin out of control, as I think we've seen with some of the comments about Nancy. But also, some of this is coming from pundits who know better or should know better, and if they don't, then they're trolling. And a lot of times that's what happens, and it's a shame that that's the media world that we're in right now, that trolling gets rewarded with attention and trolling gets rewarded with engagement, but it does, as we see, whether we're talking college football, NFL, soccer in any country in the world, it does. And what happens so often is when it does, then bad opinions become canon, incorrect opinions become canon, and people follow it. And it again, it spins out of control. And it's very frustrating, because in this case with Wilfried, I think it's painted a picture of who he is as a coach that's just absolutely incorrect. And that's a shame. He deserves better. And the club, the board especially, should have put him into a situation that gave him a better chance for success. And that's my frustration with it, is by throwing him into a week that saw them play the league leaders, saw them play Roma, and then saw them in a League Cup final in a week. Why are you putting him in that week? Why don't you put him in the next week? Let Martin O'Neill stay one more week, do those 3 games, keep it simple. Nancy can get sorted in Glasgow, and he can figure it out. I mean, these are 2 professionals. They can figure out how they want to run training sessions. Nancy can take a step back and just observe until O'Neill is done. However you want to do it, that's fine. But let O'Neill handle the big week, because it's not going to dent his legacy if you lose these 3 games. Instead, you lose the 3 games, which there was a very good chance they did anyway. And now you have a narrative about a manager that's incorrect. And you've soured your investment, which is just really stupid. There's not any logic behind it. It feels like you have sabotaged your own investment here if you're the Celtic board. So that's just my thoughts on it anyway. Bounce around a little bit of news before Bart joins us and we get into some referee stuff. We'll get into England a little bit more with Bart. I want to talk about his beloved Arsenal with him. In Spain, I watched a good bit of Barcelona and I watched a good bit of Madrid this weekend. Just my thoughts on it. I really enjoy what Hansi Flick is doing at Barcelona. And I was skeptical when he was hired. I wondered if it was too different from the Barcelona DNA. It's it's exaggerated in some aspects, but I don't think it's foreign to the Barcelona DNA. Not at all. I like that he is, and I think if you've listened to me long enough over the years, I think you know the kinds of managers that I enjoy and respect the most. I like teams that want the ball. I like teams that are bold and aggressive and attacking. Hansi is that, to the point that I think there's always the question, like, oh, drop the linebacker, just drop the defensive linebacker, and you'll be okay. It's not that simple. That's not how it's not how it works. It's not a video game setting to change. He is so aggressive because he has such a strong belief in his team winning the ball back high up the field. It's similar to, again, exaggerated, but it's similar to how when you study Pep Guardiola and you hear him talk more behind the scenes instead of like what he says publicly all the time, he focuses so much on the defense because it allows his offense to do what he wants it to do. Hansi Flick is focusing on defending high up the field and winning the ball back high up the field. And that's, if you do that, you can play the defensive line high up the field. And when you play a team like Osasuna, like they did over the weekend, you had 10 guys, all their field players, within 35 yards of the goal. And they suffocated them. And they eventually got the breakthrough, a great goal from Rafinha. Madrid, on the other hand, looked all right. It's kind of been how Madrid's looked. I think it's similar to Celtic in the sense that they don't necessarily have the players for the system, and it's showing. Uh, the hug from Vinicius Jr. and Xabi Alonso was a key moment in Madrid's season, because I think it allows them to let Xabi Alonso grow into the role and build what he wants to build. Because if that had continued to get to where it's Xabi versus the locker room, I don't know if he could have survived the noise in Madrid, because insane. I think that hug, and I don't think it was just completely spontaneous either. I think that hug from Vinicius Jr. to Xabi Alonso is going to allow them to get through this and work through it. All right, let's bring Bart Keeler into the mix here and get into a whole bunch of things. What's up, Bart?
Jason, it's freezing outside if you haven't.
I did make a walk outside earlier to take the trash out, and I did not enjoy it. It was way too cold. This is not what I signed up for.
I'm trying to do like the early morning walk, get the blood flowing in the morning, and today I don't think the blood was flowing very well.
No, the blood
And,
was frozen walking outside, and the wind not pleasant at all.
you know,
Um, I want to get into a bunch of different things with you, but let's start where you kind of chimed in on the conversation about referees.
mm,
I have really liked the 8-second change. I know everybody's like, "Oh, why don't you just enforce the law that you already have?" You didn't, because an indirect free kick is such a thing you don't want to use. A corner, I can live with that and force goalkeepers to play a little bit quicker. I think it's worked well.
I think when I first started having to use it as a referee, I don't like having to constantly be counting in my head every single time the player has the ball and
I think the referee association has attacked Bart. Bart, we're gonna try to get you back here in a second. Let's see if Bart's signal comes back as he is frozen. Oh, let's try again. IFAB might let Bart talk this time. Yes?
it would result. When they change internet providers, and clearly it hasn't.
I know that feeling.
So we were talking about goalkeepers keeping the ball for, I don't know, however long you thought it may have been under the 6 second rule. I think that is the
Yeah.
number one thing here. As a referee, I don't love running around counting every single time the goalkeeper stands up and says, okay, I can play the ball. That does get a little annoying. I feel like I'm doing the basketball. Every time they have to inbound, you're doing the one, two. That part as a referee is a little cumbersome, just to be frank.
No.
But it definitely makes sure we're all on the same page. There is no, well, how long did it take, or what is he going to call it? I know you specifically mentioned the 2012 semifinal, USA Canada.
Yeah.
That was out of nowhere. I think, like, Canada, of all the things that they have, actual Canada's complained about over the decades of not being as good as us. That was the only one that actually they had a legitimate gripe about, because I do feel like the referee said, "Hey, this is too long. You took 6 seconds." When I mean, yes, but also there was no warning, there was no indication that this is something that was all of a sudden going to be implemented. And I think that was kind of the problem with the old rule, was the
Agreed.
inconsistency. This time, we I am telling you, 5, 4, whatever, however you want to count. Um, I think that makes sure that we all understand where we are. It gives the goalkeeper a countdown in their own head. Well, even so, usually starts when the goalkeeper has possession of the ball and is then able to then like stand up and play. That's basically where we're at.
Yeah.
You can start it if, I mean, how many times have we seen the goalkeeper catch? Brad Guzan was the master of this. Catch the ball across where there's no one around him, catches it, comes down, falls to the
Yep.
ground. Now I gotta go, we can start it a little bit earlier there. We're not supposed to, but we're a little faster because we know what's going on.
Yeah.
But for the most part, we are all aware of what the standard is, because I'm counting. I'm literally telling you, and that does help. And again, they can release the ball like many goalkeepers do. I know you referenced, especially on a ball that's not really challenged, you can kind of just let it bounce your feet. I'm not counting that. It's only when you have possession of the ball in your hands in a somewhat playable manner. And you've also, had times where players, opponents will kind of step in front of the goalkeeper, because they're being annoying little twats. And Yeah, I will pause for that because I understand like this is not like you're not able to play the ball if someone's standing in front of you, and I have to then address that. So it just makes things a lot more open and clear, right?
Yeah.
The exact opposite of what FIFA does on a standard basis. So we're actually trying to be open and honest about our dealings as opposed to whatever Gianni Infantino is doing.
Speaking of that, there's some talk about a trial being allowed at the World Cup next summer when it comes to VAR, because it hasn't gone full through the IFAB
Mhm.
thing, but you can jump that if you want. And it seems like there's two things that are in play, and this hasn't been made official yet. One is second yellow cards being reviewable, and the other is corner kicks being checked to make sure it's a corner. Now, I'm going to put the corner kicks to the side because I think there's an element that we don't know yet in terms of the technology of the ball. Because the conversation is saying that you're not going to have delays because you can tell from the technology of the ball when the last touch was, and you can sync it up real quick. And if it doesn't slow down the game, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. The second yellow cards on what turns into a red. How do you feel about that coming under the purview of video assistant referees?
Love it because if we're not able to review the first yellow card, why does the second yellow card get
I
special
thought you as the referee
dispensation?
would go there with it, yeah,
Yeah,
because 'cause I'm okay with it because it turns to a red, but I get what you're saying
yeah.
totally.
And that's kind of the problem is, and I've said that many times on this show, when you've already got a yellow card and then you put yourself in a position that you could possibly get a second one, that seems like a you problem and not a
Yeah,
referee problem.
true.
And I do agree, like, I think this is where I would like to see a challenge system somewhat implemented. We saw this at the Youth World Cups this
Yeah,
year, where I would like for coaches to have one half, maybe. That would be what I would say is you get one challenge a half to say, no, actually, I do want VAR to take a look at this, or I do want the referee to maybe at that point it triggers an automatic review on the monitor type thing. As opposed to VAR just going, no, we're good. Because the VAR, obviously, their standards are different, right? Again, we've talked
yeah,
about this many times. They are saying, is this a clear and obvious error?
yeah,
And that is the trigger to then tell the on-field referee to go take a look at. So this would be, in my opinion, a way for coaches to say, no, I do want you to actually take a look at this. I don't think it would slow the game down any more than it already is because we
mhm,
want to be able to look at these things. Um, but that would be kind of my thought process on a second yellow card. There's been plenty of times that we've seen a second yellow card given for a foul that wasn't really a yellow card foul. I think it's a valid
right,
criticism.
right.
But
S
if we're allowing the second yellow card to red card, because I think it is a match changing decision, it
Yeah.
technically is. But then why aren't we just reviewing all yellow cards?
Yeah, and the timing aspect of it is probably the answer to why, but you get into this, and I think you've opened up a bigger Pandora's box that I like this conversation because we saw FIFA do something really different with the challenge system, and they've been talking through this a while. What have they called it? Like football video support or something. They've called it like
Mm,
VAR light. I've seen it called a bunch of
yeah.
different things where instead of having a dedicated video assistant referee, instead of having a VAR, instead of being in a box somewhere, it has been I think two challenges in the game is the way
Mhm.
that they've
Yeah.
structured it. And they did that in Youth World Cups in the second half of this year. So you don't have the same trigger that you do now, where you have a separate referee who says, "Hey, I want you to take a look at this," or "I'm recommending you to take a look at it," is the better language. You now have the coaches, and I believe it's the same purview, the same areas that can be reviewed.
Yes.
The coaches say, "I want you to review this," and you get two per game. And I think if you get it right, you get your your card back. You get to do it
Mm,
again, kind of like we see in American football. How have you felt about that in general?
mhm.
And would you like to see that replace video assistant
Yeah.
referees now?
Ooh. So I don't know about replace. I will say that. I don't think a total replacement makes sense at the
Okay.
highest level.
Okay.
At the highest level. Mainly because I do think there is, as we see in American football and basketball, in a lot of sports, where there are things that need to be reviewed. There are automatic triggers, and I think every goal should be reviewed. Period. Because, as your favorite quote, "Goals change games."
Yeah,
Um,
they do.
so, making sure that we're getting that correct. And that point, I do kind of understand of that needs to be something that VAR is appropriate. You need to have a video assistant referee. Now, do you need an AVAR and all these other people? I don't know, but I get it. That's a whole nother conversation about
Mm,
infrastructure. But I think having the VAR there to say, okay, let me check this goal, right? That's a lot of it is, and we see this in the Premier League a lot of times. Just looking to make sure they're onside or offside. And you need to have someone who's not on the field, who's literally in a little booth that can go punch in whatever they need to punch in and go, yeah, we're good. Or, nope, he was offside. Um, can that be fully automated? Maybe, but someone's still got to do it. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? Someone's still got to be there. And so why not have it be a certified official who knows the game and understands the laws of the game and how to apply them?
yep,
Um, I still do think that maybe at the lower levels, and I mean like literally like non-World Cup or Champions League, I could see this going in, especially in a lot of leagues. Sorry, Jared, I'm gonna throw this out there. Like Scotland,
no,
that
100%.
they don't have the manpower, just really sometimes to do this,
Yep,
or they don't have the money to pay for a lot of these players. I mean, Scotland is a good league, but like that would save them money. I mean, there are tons of
yeah.
leagues across Europe that are not a big four.
And that
Who,
was kind of the idea with this setup was
yeah,
it would be something that you could implement with any kind of situation. I look at it doing the college games that I do.
mm,
I would much rather see this in college than what we see
yes,
currently, where it's just kind of an option to go
I hate
look at a review.
the college review system.
It's so inconsistent.
Yeah, and
If you
that's what standard is.
Yeah, this standardizes things and allows you to just look at whatever broadcast you have, whatever cameras you have
Mm,
available. You can take a look and you can stick with your decision or not stick with your decision. 1 second before we come back to it, there is some breaking news. I'm not going to hit the
uh-oh.
sounder. I don't think it's quite to that level. Michael Bradley, your new Red Bulls manager in New Jersey. Um,
I love
I
that
think
for him, and I'm not even
I
trying
do
to
too.
be like,
No, I've said it for a long time. Like Michael Bradley's one of the best players that this country's ever produced, and I feel like he took way too much blame for things that were not on him. He's one guy in a team, and he became the punching bag. And look, it happens. I think it was unfair. I've said that a million times. I also, with all of that being said, I thought he would be a very good manager one day. He
mhm,
just seemed like that kind of guy. Obviously, it's in the family. I'm excited to see what he does. I want to see how he puts his stamp on that Red Bull idea of playing because you think
mm,
about it, like he didn't play in that, and him as a player, I could have seen him playing in that system, but I also think of him more as a ball playing guy that
yeah.
I'm really intrigued now from a game model to see what he does with the Red Bulls.
Well, yeah, Jason, you bring up a good point. I think had he been born 5 years later or started playing really, I think you would have seen him in those systems because of
Yeah, he could have.
his
For
work
sure.
rate in the
Yeah, good
right?
point.
But despite what U.S. soccer fans want to say, he is one of our best midfielders ever. And I
No
mean that
problem. Yeah,
sincerely. Like, I mean, putting him
100%.
up there with Claudio, with with Tab, with all those guys. I mean, one of the best. Better than Jermaine Jones, despite what people want to talk about. But
Oh,
Jermaine was
and
a different skill set.
yeah. Oh, man. Don't even get me
But
started.
I think this brings me up my favorite talking point when it comes to U.S. soccer. We need more of our national team players to become coaches.
Yep.
I see this all the time on the women's side, and it drives me crazy. Name the only like. There's only one, truly one U.S. women's national teamer who has had any sort of success as a coach, and it's uh, well, modern success. It's Amy Rodriguez, right? You had April Heinrichs take him to a silver medal in the Olympics, but
She did
really, Amy
some.
Rodriguez is the only one.
Cindy Parlow Cone actually did some coaching and did all
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
Um, Linda Hamilton has
Yep.
coached in college and done well. Yeah, it hasn't really
Violet
been the
Overbeck is
route.
still coaching in college, and it's just like Violet Overbeck is a multiple-time World Cup winner, but she's an assistant coach in college.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
crazy to me.
Cat Whitehill here in Atlanta with Emory.
Right. I mean, so on the men's side, especially, I mean, yes, we have Jim Curtin, who I think is
Yeah.
one of your better ones. Jesse
Yeah.
Marsh, obviously, one of your better
Mhm.
ones. Um, but even then, it's like, I would argue that they're not known for being USMNTers. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. Your highest
And
profile U.S. men's national team players that I can think of going into coaching, and Michael Bradley might be the highest profile that I think of right
well,
now
what
to
I
the,
think a lot
and
of them,
coaching in MLS. So like highest profile on
they're
both sides because John Harkes had a really good year with Cincinnati and then got
mhm,
kind of run out of town. Sounds like there was some politics going on. Then he went to Greenville and did very well and now hasn't coached in a little bit. Eric
which
Winalda
shocks
was
me.
yeah, same. I keep waiting for Harkes to pop up somewhere and he hasn't. Winalda coached here in Atlanta. He had success at various times, and it was always very difficult for him to navigate the TV work that he was doing and getting paid well for, and coaching.
Yeah.
Like he was always kind of stuck in between. Peter Vermes is one, and he is
Yeah.
another one who I'm
Yeah.
surprised hasn't picked up a spot yet. A little bit earlier era, but Michael Bradley is probably since Peter Vermes the highest profile U.S. men's national team player to now be managing at the highest profile spot.
Because even if you consider Greg Berhalter, who obviously highest profile coaching gig, they are not the same type of player. And part of
No,
it is position,
Berhalter's
but
close, but yeah, he's not
yeah,
quite at that level from the playing side.
yeah. Um, and that's just my always point is we need more of our
Yeah.
national teamers to get into coaching, and I mean high level coaching because it is again we don't have a single U.S. trying to go through the roster. We don't have a single U.S. women's national teamer coaching in NWSL right now that Amy Rodriguez is no longer,
Mhm.
at least at the head coach position.
Yeah.
Um, there were a couple of former, we had England and Canada in the league for a time. But it's a little crazy that we don't have, and even, in MLS where you have a lot more teams, you don't have Jim Curtin anymore. Chris Armas, Pablo Mastroeni,
Yeah.
uh, sure,
Very
but
good national team
yeah,
players, but not the same profile as Michael
yeah.
Bradley.
And then Greg Berhalter. So getting more involved. I mean, it it more goes back to my kind of point is we need more Americans involved in American soccer because
Yeah.
if we're not taking care of it ourselves, then we're leaving it to people who may not have the best of intentions. And if your soccer people aren't involved, then you're leaving it to people who are only caring about the business side, and that's where we have youth clubs charging $3,000 a day to play soccer, basically. But that's a whole nother conversation.
That is definitely another conversation, and I could probably hit the, adult language trigger for
Um,
sure on that one. Yeah, it's interesting because I do wanna see more of these guys and women get involved, and it's not that they don't give back to the game in doing the media side of it, they do, and it's important, and I in those roles, I wanna see them even be more intentional about growing the game. I think at
mm,
times it becomes the punditry that I don't enjoy as much, that is more about clicks and engagement as opposed to education and growth. But I'd love to see some of these players get involved.
mhm.
And it doesn't have to be at MLS and NWSL levels. It can be on the youth side. It can be in different ways. But growing the game at those levels and passing on what they've
Mm.
gotten, and passing that on to the next generation.
I can't. I mean, we had a. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love Gonzalo Cigares as a former Chicago Fire fan, but
Yeah,
why is that not going to enter ex U.S. national team, former national team player
there
who
should
has
be a
a?
player
It's
pushing for
like
that.
that's my point
Yeah, and I don't
on
think
men's and
it's
women's side.
yeah, I don't think it's U.S. Soccer saying we don't want to hire them. I think it's not enough pushing into those spots. And
Yeah.
look, I love that U.S. Soccer is investing in coaching education on both sides, on the men's and the women's side in terms of prioritizing creating licensing courses for current professionals and getting them going. I love that. That's great. And hopefully it all starts to bear fruit down the road. Um, we could get into the growth of US soccer a lot, and we will over the next 6+ months with World Cup coming and all the effects that that's going to create for it. But I want to come back to the video situation a little bit because I I've leaned and I did not think I would. I remember when they started talking about challenges and all that. I'm like, oh, I don't know if that's going to work in this sport. I don't know how it's going to feel. I really liked it in the Youth World Cups a lot more
Mhm.
than I thought I would. And I think one of my reasons for being okay if that became the way that we do replay. And I think you still need to refine some things and work on some things. But if that was the system that we end up choosing, my frustration with VAR and center referees at times is when you get video assistant referees that have more stature than the center ref. And you get into the situations. I think in England, we see referees very rarely go against video assistant referees. I think we see more of that here in MLS, but
Mhm.
it's still this idea. And look, maybe it's down to the training of the video assistant referees of when you interject and when you don't. I
Mhm.
still think there's some disconnect in how the process works a little bit from that side of it.
Well, every league and every national association has kind of their own protocol for it. So that is number one issue that we're running into, right? Is yes, England, the FA, the EPL, and the EFL have different standards of intervention. I do think that MLS has a slightly lower threshold, which does, as you point, and I don't know for sure because I haven't sat in on these meetings, but based on
Yeah,
what I'm seeing, I agree with you that
I
MLS
would agree.
sometimes you have a guy that says, "Oh, you need to take a look at this," versus, "Oh, this is clearly wrong," and that I do
Right.
wish in MLS we kind of went more of the VAR needs to be the one to say, no, this is not a clear and obvious error, or this is a clear and obvious error. Please go take a look at it. Because
Right.
even if penalties are like, oh no, you got that wrong, it wasn't a foul, there's still some decisions that the referee may need to make. It. Maybe it's simulation. Maybe it's um oh no, actually no, I do think that I feel justified in giving. That's a possibility too, right? Oh gosh, the one that was this weekend in the Leeds Brentford game that annoyed the crap out of me because
Oh, I
the
didn't see that.
commentary is going, "Oh, it's a soft penalty," and I'm like, "It's still but a foul inside the penalty area. Well, then it's a penalty kick. Sorry, that's just
Yeah.
how this. I mean, I've given plenty of soft penalties because that I mean, I one 2 weeks ago. Jason, there's a defender defending a player and an attacker like going outside the box, and we're talking like on the far side of the 18,
Mm,
and just kicks her in the ankle. And it's like, sorry, and I'm like,
you have to.
you
You
know,
don't have a
one
choice.
for this. It's not fair. Anyway, I hate that because I do think that seeps a little bit into some of the way that VAR looks at things. It's like, oh, is that soft enough or for a
Right.
penalty? Look at this foul, it's a foul.
Right.
Sorry, I hate to say that to people, but if it's a
No,
gray area, it's
it
foul.
creates the other conversation that I know has been had at least been talked about of not making every foul in the 18 a penalty, and that's another possibility you could tweak.
I do think that like my statement would be similar to how we have with uh we talk about double jeopardy being, oh, it
Mhm.
must be a legitimate play on the ball. I would basically say like if it is a non-legitimate play on the ball, then it's a penalty kick. If it is, then we just do an indirect free kick, which is one, I think the most fun and chaos-inducing moments in the game, and I think we should have more of them. But I think it does like several times you're just like, hey, this ball, like, why are we calling a penalty kick for a guy who gets fouled leaving the penalty area, still inside the
Yeah,
penalty area at the edge of the box near the corner? Like that
right.
doesn't make sense because it's not a direct threat on goal.
Agreed.
And so I do believe that. But to VAR point, I think challenges make way more sense at levels where training, human power, infrastructure, money may not be up to the level of, and this is this, by the way, MLS and Premier League are at that level. I'm sorry, despite what people want to say. Like when it comes to the infrastructure, the money, we're similar.
And broadcast
That's what
ties
I'm
into that too, like what you have
saying.
available. If you have tons of different cameras, absolutely you can do the VAR system. Then you have to train the VARs as much
Yeah.
as possible.
And so in a league like Scotland, where I think they just got cameras 10 years ago in the country, they
Wow.
Jared's not here, so I'm making all the shots I can at Scotland.
Wow.
That said, I was sad that Scotland won't be here in Atlanta because I would have loved to
Same.
hear Flower Scotland live at the World Cup. Anyway,
Yep.
there are plenty of countries out there where the money, the broadcast, the television, the cameras just aren't there. You're right. I mean, again, college game. They're different at every place you go to. And I think forcing VAR into those environments doesn't make sense. But allowing for a video review challenge does, because as we saw at the U20 World Cup, look, sometimes it's just, oh, they scored a goal, we're challenging it. But that's fine. Because again, I think all goals should be reviewed because
Yep.
they're important match changing decisions. But it at least keeps, in my opinion, if we know that we only get 2 a game or 1.5 or whatever it is, we know how many stoppages we're having. We're not having a stoppage every time a goal is scored to be like, well, maybe, or
Yep.
a ball goes out of play and you're like, hold up, we got a thing coming down from the VAR, and you're going, what is being? We don't even know what's being checked.
Right.
I do think that would help. Again, at World Cup levels, at Champions League, at CONCACAF Champions Cup, I do think that VAR needs to be there because these are, in my opinion, the highest of highest levels.
Yeah.
And
I
we need
think
to make sure
where
that
I'm
we're keeping
getting
that there.
now is I almost feel like we go to a hybrid that we see with American football, where it's some things are automatic checks and then
Mhm.
others are challenge. Maybe that's where you end up going. It'll take forever for that to happen because I think the rest of the world's still a little more foreign when it comes to using replay and using review and all that. I wanted to ask you about Arsenal before you take off
Boy.
because I think with it wasn't a good game over the weekend, but they get the job done. They get the 3 points, which is all that matters in the grand scheme of things. How do you feel at this stage of almost the midway point? You're almost to Boxing Day and all of that, and you're leading the table. City is strong. Villa is stronger than we thought they would be. Liverpool is a mess, but they get a win.
Mhm.
Everybody else, Chelsea sounds like maybe there's a little bit of a mess behind the scenes. We'll find out. But they're in the mix. How do you feel about Arsenal being where they are in the table right now?
Well, it's always nerve-wracking, Jason, because unlike with City, there's not a feeling of expectation. Some of that is because
Yeah.
there are some things that City is able to do that makes them almost inevitable. I feel like that's the word that always comes up with Manchester City. I do think that from just looking at the schedule, we have had most of our toughest games played already. We had away to Liverpool, away to Man United, away to Villa. Okay. Um, the next fixture is at the Emirates. So from that standpoint, I'm going, okay, sure, we lost at Liverpool, we lost at Villa. Both of those games, by the way, are games we probably could have won, just because if things go differently. Um, you feel confident. Right now, though, it feels very similar to a lot of Arsenal seasons where we go, well, half the team's injured. We're down to our feels like our eighth choice center back. And from that standpoint, you just go, if we can get healthy, we'll be fine. We get Gabby Jesus back
Mhm.
over the weekend. He scored, well, kind of scored, caused an own goal, if you will. That is a positive. That I think is where we're at right now with Arsenal, and that's where I'm at is going, okay, we're getting results. They may not always be great results, but for the most part, over the past couple weeks, we've gotten results while missing some key players. I mean, our two best center backs still haven't played in about a month, I feel like, together anyway.
Mm.
That is, despite what some people want to say, that matters a lot. And it matters a lot for the possession because you just are allowed to do things when you have two of your best players in the back. You get those players back, I think you're feeling a lot more confident. Now, we are coming up to the silly season in the Premier League. The summer's not the silly season. It's playing 17 games in 15 days. That's the silly part of the Premier League, the way they love
Yeah.
to do this over the
Yeah.
holidays. That's concerning with a slightly depleted squad. But I feel confident that the team is able to get results even when they're not at their best. And look, being set piece FC helps mitigate that. Now,
Mm-hmm.
some of the players out help score off of set pieces, but I mean, first off, I've never understood why you'd be upset about scoring off a set piece, because I think a goal is a goal no matter how you get it. And sometimes set pieces are the best way to get a goal when things aren't fully clicking. I think that's been my biggest critique of Atlanta United over the past couple of years is, could y'all score off a set piece on occasion? Because that would help a lot.
That'd be nice.
Especially when we lost after we lost Almada, where it was like, okay, this is not a guaranteed, actual chance on goal. Um, that helps. So if you can get back to that a little bit, where you are a constant threat off of set pieces or just causing havoc, get some of your players who are injured back. I will feel fine. Right now, I'm a little concerned, but again, that's just normal. Again, there's not this feeling of inevitability. There's always a feeling of angst, and will they rival it, as they will say. And I think as you get players healthy, you get through the congested period. I mean, we still had Champions League matches and all this, and
Mm-hmm.
we won both of those, top of the table in the Champions League. So I think people are rightly questioning Arsenal's resolve, but I think it comes down to a lot of players out with a lot of fixtures being in the period of time.
As a neutral, I said after the win over Bayern,
Mm.
so not quite a month ago, I said Arsenal was the best team in Europe after that win. I don't know if I would hammer down on that right now, but I'm also not saying that they're not. I think it has maybe become a little bit more in dispute, and some of it is just the fatigue. You got 12, if I did the math right, you got 12 games between now and January 31st, including Premier League, a Gummy Bear Cup quarterfinal, an FA Cup third round, and
Yeah.
2 Champions League games. Yeah, that's a lot. You got to go
Lot.
to Milan and play Inter. You got to host Liverpool. You got to host Manchester United. You host Kairat. You should be fine there. You got the
I mean,
quarterfinal in the League Cup against Crystal Palace, and then you go to
that
Portsmouth
right
in
there
FA
is
Cup.
probably the hardest fixture we have looking ahead. I mean, honestly, Crystal Palace has had our number over the past few seasons, and
Yeah.
that's concerning. And then you got
Oh, you got
Villa at
Villa
home.
too.
That
Sorry,
is,
you got
yeah,
Villa on
Villa at
December
home
31st.
and Liverpool at home. But again, as I
Yeah.
said, both of those on the road, one goal losses that felt like you probably could have won. I'm just saying. And I feel like you come back, you have those fixtures, the reverse fixtures at the Emirates. I feel more confident. Some of
Yeah.
that's something with it too. Liverpool is not the same Liverpool that when we played them in week 3. I feel like
Right.
they have spiraled. Um, Villa's also going to have to go through a lot of matches as well, so it's not like we're the only team who's going to have to deal with it.
Right. It's going to be interesting. It's a more, as somebody who's not super Premier League focused, it's been a more interesting,
Mm-hmm.
compelling season than I've seen in a little while.
I feel like half the time over the past 2 decades, there's been a team by this point that's like, oh yeah, they're winning
Yeah.
between mostly City, but even with Chelsea or Liverpool,
Mhm.
it just has always felt like, yep, that there they are. And well, it comes down to money a lot of times,
It does.
which good for them. They can spend a lot of money. I'm not saying Arsenal hasn't, but it does feel, I'm with you, a lot more competitive. And that's makes it entertaining, which is nice.
All right. Let people know what you have coming up on the Soccer for US podcast.
So we're hopefully going to record tonight or tomorrow.
Okay.
My good friend who comes on the show on occasion, Lawrence Dockery, he does every year he does an attendance amalgamation. He does like one whole attendance table. He does USMNT and USWNT attendance. And so we're going to talk about that because, Jason, spoiler alert, they're looking down this year. And we are going to talk about some of those factors. I will very much say, I think one of those factors is Atlanta United not being great this year, driving down some MLS attendance because we actually had games this year that weren't sellouts.
Yep.
Also, going from Copa America to Gold Cup, and also understanding that there's a World Cup next year.
Yeah,
These things
I'm not
factor into it.
concerned by it, but
No,
yes.
no. And so we have to speak about that because NWSL is down, and I think a lot of people are freaking out. And I just think people need to kind of understand where attendance usually lies with soccer in this country and how
Yeah.
it does kind of ebb and flow based on things around it. But
Yeah.
that's our topic of discussion this
Okay.
week.
Interesting. Very interesting. Make sure you tune into that. We'll have that on the network here coming up soon. Bart, always good to catch up. We'll see you soon.
Likewise, Jason, you'll have a wonderful Monday.
We will try. We make no guarantees. Finish things up here on SDH AM. If you guys have anything you want to get into, drop it into the comments. I feel like there's a whole bunch of things that doors are open that we could pontificate on here for a few more minutes. No soccer over there tonight. Sorry, folks. I'll be back in the morning with another edition of SDH AM as John Nelson is preparing for high school football over the next 3 days. The state championships, he's had his own drama to deal with there as there's been court cases and all kinds of stuff going on the Georgia high school football front. That finally got resolved. But he'll be there. Madison Cruz, our own Maddie, will be on the sideline for the next 3 days, maybe 4. No, I think it's just 3 days. She'll be on the sideline for those as well. No SDH AM on Wednesday. I have some other things that I cannot get away from, and John will be very busy. So that's what the schedule looks like this week. Just a couple of housekeeping things. If you're not subscribed and you like to get a newsletter of the daily updates in the world, sign up on our website. You can go to soccerdownhere.net/connect and sign up for the morning espresso. We're going to invest a little bit more in the espresso. It's going to have a new look for 2026 and beyond. I'm excited about how that has grown throughout the year. That is every morning. It's usually in your inbox anywhere between 8 and 10 a.m. There's also a podcast component, but you get that wherever you get your SDH podcasts. So make sure you are signed up there. We are going to have some new merch for you for 2026 as well. That will be coming over the next probably month or so. We're getting into our high school season coming up, starting in mid-February. Will be a big part of the Creek Cup at Johns Creek and at Northview High School, calling all of those games. We got Atlanta United preseason getting started in about a month's time. All kinds of stuff coming up, and all the getting ready for a World Cup that is going to be just the craziest run between now and next summer, with the world coming to Atlanta and all the different things that are going to happen as part of that. So we're very busy on the planning side and trying to make all of this as good and thorough and informative and entertaining as we possibly can for you. Let's see if there's anything else on the news front that I wanted to jump into that we haven't touched on. If you missed it, Toluca won the Liga MX crown last night. Penalty shootout went all the way through the 11 and then back around again. Alexis Vega, who's been injured for most of the postseason, he was the hero for Toluca. In Argentina, you saw Estudiantes, who was the last team into the playoff. They got into all kinds of trouble for doing the reverse guard of honor and turning their back on Rosario Central. Their president, the legendary Juan Sebastian Veron, suspended. He was in the stands watching the game as Estudiantes won in penalties. They had a stoppage time equalizer, send that one to penalties. They ended up winning the shootout. We talked about Madrid and Xabi Alonso, and it feels like things are maybe starting to ease a little bit in that pressure. You're going to have a new team on top in France at Christmas, Lyon. Odson Edouard, former Celtic striker, he led Lyon to a 2-0 win over Nice. They have French Cup, Coupe de France coming up next weekend, and then Ligue 1 will start back up in early January. San Lorenzo, a team that has been linked with a possible move on the Atlanta United front, they are having a board meeting tomorrow at 11 a.m. Local time. Their president, Marcelo Moretti, he sent the email out to his colleagues. He did not say where the location is going to be, quote, in order to guarantee security measures. It's not good. The venue will be announced 24 hours in advance, so should be out here shortly. Attendees are asked to keep it strictly confidential. It will be in Buenos Aires somewhere. Now, the president of San Lorenzo, Marcelo Moretti, he has been accused of corruption. He's been accused of accepting bribes to include a youth player in the club's youth academy. He last made a public appearance at the training complex for the AFA, the Argentine Football Association, during the draws for the groups for the league for 2026. They split the number of teams into two groups. They had a draw for that. They did the Copa Argentina draw as well. He was there. Prior to that, he had been on leave, and there were incidents during his attempts to visit the club to watch the team. They had some political uncertainty that the courts ended up resolving. He's tried to meet with Chiqui Tapia, the head of the AFA, to normalize everything. You'll remember that he went to a meeting at the club's headquarters, and fans found out about it, and they protested outside, and the police had to basically extract Moretti from the building and get him into a car to get him out safely. An opposition member to the board, he found out about the board meeting, and he has disseminated the communication that is out there. You've got the highlights of the agenda, which are going to be about getting the board organized and potentially making some board members resign, which could get interesting. It's very complicated, and you also have a issue with them being possibly bankrupt here very soon because they owe money to Adolfo Gaich, former player who went to Russia, if I remember correctly. It's a bad situation, and one of the rumors about Atlanta United trying to do business with them was basically like there's nobody in the office to do business with. That's not a good situation. So San Lorenzo needs to sell, but I don't know who's going to make the actual decision to sell. So there you go. We'll keep an eye on San Lorenzo and let you know how that goes. You've got the Intercontinental Cup for FIFA that's going to be on Wednesday in Qatar as Flamengo won another trophy over the weekend. They will play PSG. They beat Pyramids from Egypt 2-0. They had beaten Cruz Azul before that. So Flamengo trying to run the table here in the Intercontinental Cup. See if they can knock off PSG in the midweek. You had a couple of World Cup related updates that might have flown under the radar. Henk ten Cate has been named the new coach of Suriname, as Suriname and Jamaica both had their managers step down after not making it to automatic spots, but making it into the interconfederational playoff. It's going to be Henk ten Cate, the 71-year-old former manager of Ajax, has been an assistant at Barca and at Chelsea. He will take over for the Interconfederational playoff and their match against Bolivia in Monterrey on March 26th. If they win that, they'll play Iraq on March 31st to go into Group I with France, Norway, and Senegal. Germany, they have set their schedule for pre-World Cup. They had to make a change. They were going to play Cote d'Ivoire. They're going to have to play Ghana instead because they're in the same group with the Ivory Coast. So not a big shock there. Ghana's coach is the German-born Otto Addo, who played for Ghana, won the Bundesliga with Borussia Dortmund. And looks like Colombia, they want to train in Guadalajara as their base camp. They're going to play, I think, 2 of their games in Mexico in the group stage. They do not want to set up base camp in Mexico City because of the air quality. So they're looking at Guadalajara as their base camp. That has been reported by Sebastian Vargas of Caracol Radio. And Telemundo, they have already sold 90% of their inventory for Spanish language coverage of the World Cup. They report that they have seen double the spend from advertisers since the 2022 tournament in Qatar, different time of year, increased digital participation, diversified client base, they say, greater sponsorship activations. They are 90% sold out already for World Cup. So the numbers are very, very big on where this stuff is going to go for next summer. That's all your latest updates. Today's actually, what do we have today? I think it's somewhat quiet day on the international front. We got Manchester United and Bournemouth at 3 o'clock. We've got Roma and Como in Serie A at 2:45. That's an intriguing one. I might have two screens going for that. You got games in Portugal. You got Rangers playing in Scotland at 2:45. You got the championship with Sheffield Wednesday and Derby. Then you start to get into the lower divisions. You've got the Arab Cup knockout stages going on. AFCON will get started here in about a week's time. So all kinds of stuff happening. But yeah, you get to catch your breath a little bit this week on the soccer front. We'll get into the League Cup in England tomorrow with Cardiff hosting Chelsea. Well, that'll do it for this edition of SDH AM. I'll be back with you tomorrow. Again, no soccer over there tonight. That will not be live at 8 o'clock. Going to take the weekend off there. I'll be back next week when John can join back in. And I'll be back tomorrow morning with you as John is out. Well, then we won't have a show on Wednesday, and John will be back for you on Thursday with all the usual suspects there with Nico Moreno and Nino Torres. So y'all have a good rest of the day, and I'll see you tomorrow morning for another edition of SDH. Mucha plata, y'all.